I just realized if I stand right here, it looks like I have antlers. That's great. Hey guys, Elizabeth, curly-haired country gal here. Today I'm going to be reviewing Grandpa's Goody Getter, a nutcracker made in Missouri, not specifically for black walnuts, but it's something that can handle black walnuts, which is a really hard nut, so a lot of other things can't crack it. Hey, so now we get a special guest appearance from my beloved. He's just standing over there working. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you how easy this is to use, and then, as always, talk about the pros and cons of this particular tool and kind of my rating for it. As with everything else that I like to make videos on, I like to try to focus on building things and purchasing things that are durable, low cost, and low maintenance. So I'll kind of talk about how that works out with this particular device here. Hey, so here's the Grandpa's Goody Getter. I just went ahead and secured it to a 2x6 board. In the directions for the Goody Getter, it recommends using a board that's at least 24 inches long, so that's what I did here. And some people might secure it to a workbench, which would work great, but I'm thinking I'm only going to get this out once a year to harvest walnuts or other nuts, so I wanted it to be able to be something I could take apart and put away, so I use nuts and bolts. So I don't know the size of the screws, so the measurements I'm going to give you might not be super helpful, but I just went ahead and used a 3/16 drill bit to drill all the holes after marking it, and then I went ahead and used on the bottom side this 5/8 I think it's a bore bit halfway up so that I could make it flush. So I stuck the screws doesn't make it all the way through, of course, because I wanted it to be able to sit flat on the table. So I put the holes in the bottom using the bore bit, and then I went ahead and threaded on the nut and bolt. Now it's time to use it. So kind of my caveat for this, there's two caveats. One is that I've actually never done this before. I've never harvested my own walnuts and processed them until this year. So you can check out the other video where I talk about how that went, what I did to gather and go from the fruit to this to some walnuts. So anyway, this is my first year, and then my second caveat is that I don't have anything to compare this to, because I know some people just use a hammer and pliers or something, but I went ahead and just got this because I thought it would make my life easier. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. This is the Grandpa's Goody Getter, and it's pretty easy to set up, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So the first thing to do here is simply to thread your handle into the Goody Getter here. Let's thread it on now, and they provide a nut that you can use to just secure it onto there. You can also secure it onto the other side, but I just opted to put it on the right side this time. And then after you do that, let me back this up a little bit. There's just a little pin down here, so there's a little bit of a shadow, but there's just a pin down here. So you just push the Goody Getter back a little bit so that you can release the pin from the other side. And then that gets it ready to use, and this metal piece pops out, and then you're ready to go. threads going up and have the nut up and down in the cracker. So I'm going to show you that correctly. Well, maybe more correctly. You just take the fruit and you kind of get the feel for how much pressure to use and things like that. So you just crack it, and some people can get like the whole like full quarters or maybe even the whole nut out at the same time. I am definitely not that good yet, but definitely does the job as far as getting it cracked. And then I've been putting the walnuts in there, and then all the extra over here. I have 16.5 pounds to process, so it's already taken several hours. It's just a time-consuming process, but this is definitely effective at cracking the nut. And yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that down for now and just lay out the pros and cons that I found with this tool. I think there's several pros. One is that it is really durable and sturdy. And so I really like that. It's really obviously well made. And along those lines, another pro for me is that it's made in the US, in Missouri. So that's something that we like. We like to support US businesses, so that's important to us, and I like that. The other thing that I like about this is the customer service. So the first time I actually ordered one, the piece up here, it actually wasn't tapped, and so there was nothing for me to thread this handle into. So I went ahead and sent it back, or I got in touch with them and sent it back, and they sent another one right away. They sent me a new one before I even sent this one back, after I sent them some pictures. So really good customer service. Along those lines, with customer service, oh yeah, I ordered this on a Wednesday and it arrived on Thursday. So I do live relatively close to them compared to maybe people on the coast or something, but that was impressive. And then the second one arrived the very next day too, after I got in touch with them. So they seem to be on top of that. That was impressive. I just found a little bit more nut meat that I couldn't get out. So those are definitely some pros, and the price is kind of a pro as well. It's regularly listed at $190, but then I was able to find it on sale for $170. So you can just keep an eye on it, or maybe get on their mailing list if they have one, and get an even better deal on it. So $170. So I think that's pretty good, I think. As far as cons, I don't really think I have any cons, except that this whole thing is just kind of a time-consuming process. But there are other nutcrackers, and there's one other nutcracker I've seen that processes black walnuts that is really heavy duty, and you just use a hand crank and you just put a whole bunch in the top and you just crank it. But it was like thousands of dollars, I think. So I was fine to try this one, especially for my first year. But overall, really happy with it, really happy with the customer service, and excited to finish processing walnuts this year. And then the other thing I like to focus on is if things are low maintenance, and that it seems like this is going to be low maintenance. This is so new that I haven't had to do any maintenance on it, but they do have information on the website about how to grease it and make sure it's in good working order. That keeping up with maintenance on tools is not my forte. That would be my husband's forte, but hopefully I'll be able to stay on top of that, and hopefully it won't be too high maintenance, but I don't think it will. I think it's just greasing in the pilot holes, I think is what they're called, so that shouldn't be too bad either.